Hey, what's up? It's your guide Riley from Laketrails Base Camp. Today I'm going to be kind of going over how to read a map or chart, and then also do a little bit of a trip review for one of my trips to the Boundary Waters up north. We happen to stay at Saginaga. I've also heard it pronounced Sagnaga. The spelling is there for you, just so you know what lake we're talking about. The charting and mapping skills that we'll talk about in this video also can carry over to Lake of the Woods. We just didn't want to give you guys all our campsites that we use, so we thought that might as well show you the Boundary Waters because those should be a lot more easily accessible to you in general. So, looking at the map or the chart, all these little red dots that you see pockmarked throughout the map, that is predetermined camping spots that they have for you at Lake Saginaga. Those predetermined campsites, a lot of them have pre-made fire pit and a grill for cooking. A lot of them will have a camp toilet as well, so you don't have to bury your own poop or anything like that. On this chart, you can see the Canadian and US border goes right through this lake all the way down. And over here on the Canadian side, you'll see a lot of different little triangles, whereas over on the US side, there's not a lot of them. Only more so down by the launch points and stuff. You'll also see some stars marked on the map. Those are just to indicate rocky areas or rock outcroppings, mainly for motorists so that the boats can see and make sure they don't hit those. Otherwise, maybe fishermen might like those because the fish could hang out and find some more food through those rock outcroppings just because they're farther away from people and whatnot. On this chart, I marked out where we launched from over here with a little circle and a star. Then I marked first island that we stayed at. It's called Englishman Island. That's why there's a 1 there. And then over at number 2, we also circled that one because that's where we stayed our last night out on trail. So, talking about our trip and kind of walking through the route that we took and kind of explaining the reason why we took that route. First, we started by loading up over here. This was the launch designated to us by the outfitters that some of our group used to rent a canoe, rent life jackets, rent paddles, whatever, and also where we had to get our camping permits from. So we made a launch from this little bay right here, and then all of us were able to stay in a pretty good group all the way through this long channel. While we were paddling through this channel, it was nice, easy breezy, sunny day. There wasn't too much wind because it was blocked by this land over here and all the trees. So we were able to stay in a nice big group, kind of talk and chat and sing all the way up. And then this is where we hit our open water here at the top of the channel. And as we were coming kind of through this narrows right here towards the top of the channel, we started to get a bit of an idea of what the water out here was looking like, because obviously this is a lot more open area than this little channel here. So as we're coming up, we know that we want to go that way because we had looked at either Long Island or Englishman as our potential campsites for night 1, and all the wind was coming that way. So if the wind is coming so if the wind is coming like this from my hand towards the end of the pen, that's going to be called northwest wind. The wind is named after the direction in which it's coming from, not the direction it's blowing towards. So with the northwest wind, it's going to be blowing you towards the southeast. So if we're going to be planning to go all the way up and around here, we're going to be fighting that wind for the majority of the trip for that day. So what we planned on and did to the best of our abilities, because we had a decent gap of experience throughout our whole group. We had a group of 12. We had some beginners that hadn't really ever paddled before, and we had some on the other end that have done this a lot. They like to go camping or canoeing, and myself, I've been a guide for 2 summers, so I can handle the paddle and the canoe fairly well. So we came up and around this corner, and then we tried to split right between these 2 islands. We didn't want to get too close to the windward side of this island here because the wind could push you up against the shore and then rock your canoe, maybe sink it or get a lot of water in there that you don't want when you have all your camping gear. So we went right through these 2, kind of split that. and we made our way all the way up to Loon Island right here. And if you're on the opposite side of the island where the wind is blocked by the trees and just the geography of the land, that is called your leeward side. So we went to the leeward side of Loon Island and followed that through the bottom of Munker Island, making sure to kind of, cut some time off where we could and shoot from point to point. You could travel all the way through the shoreline to make sure you were all the way out of the wind, but that's just a little bit excessive for trying to, make it as efficient as possible. And then from this point, we cut across to this little island here. And since we had a group of 12, we didn't exactly want to try and stay at one really itty bitty island all by ourselves. We decided to keep going along Long Island, and we paddled around this area a little bit. We kind of broke off into groups just to scout out the various camp spots. We didn't want to stay at Gold just because there was only one campsite and we wanted to be able to spread out a little bit. When we looked around Long Island, one of the campsites was taken, so we couldn't do these two, and the other ones on the north side were left open, presumably because they weren't the best campsites. They had a lot of rocks and trees down and things like that, so we ended up going with Englishmen over here. That way we could have our own island, but we weren't cramped. We were able to spread out with 6 people at the north campsite, 6 people at the south. Our campsite was beautiful. We had to deal with a little bit more wind than the south side, but we got awesome sunsets and we had an awesome view of kind of the open lake and whatnot. We stayed there for 3 days. The day we got there, one day of kind of rest and relaxation, and the third day of just, enjoying the campsite, making sure we were all hanging out and mingling either at our campsite for breakfast or the south side for dinner. And during those days, we had a couple groups that went out and did some fishing kind of down here by Cooper Island. A group of guys took a canoe and went and visited these rocks just to go swimming and explore a little bit. And then on the 4th day, we all got up and had our breakfasts, then broke our camp down, and the north side went and connected up with the south side, because then we were going to make our trek all the way over to our second campsite with our hopes of being able to try and visit the Segnaga Falls over here. So north side packed up, met up with the south side campsite, and then the wind wasn't as bad today, but it was still that northwest wind. So we all stayed on the leeward side of Long Island, kind of still going with that idea of shooting from point to point. And then once we got to Loon Island is where we had to make a choice of either going north, up and around to stay in the leeward side, or we could shoot kind of from Munker Island to this little island here called Reef Island and then continue onward. Since the wind was not as bad, and if anything going to the east, it was a little more in our favor, we decided to make some crossings, which we just refer to as crossing open water as opposed to going along shorelines. So from Munker, we went through the north side of Loon, connected up with Reef, and kind of took a little pause there so that we could all regroup and stay together and chat and whatnot. Then from Reef, we jumped up over to Horseshoe, and this general area is where we were hoping to find some sort of campsites together. So one group went on to check this spot while the other one kind of looped around Horseshoe to see what was available. When we were at Horseshoe, most of the campsites were taken, which we weren't too surprised. We figured that the east would be a little more crowded since there was that northwest wind coming in on those first couple days of the week. So we looped around here and then all decided that this was the best campsite because we didn't want to spend all day looking and searching. So we all beached our canoes on the north side and spread out our tents around the island, because at the Boundary Waters, per permit, they want you to have only 8 people at each campsite. And this was our last day where all of us were staying together because a couple groups were leaving the next day. So we all beached our canoes at the same spot because it was the best place for that. And this island wasn't super treacherous, not a lot of trees and thickets. So we were able to all beach up here and then spread out throughout the island. So we were still using the 2 campsites as opposed to crowding in one. We didn't want to break the rules or anything and abide by whatever they have to make the campsites best and preserve it, because the Boundary Waters are beautiful and da 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 da. So we set up tents, made a homestead here for the night, and a couple of us went over and double checked Connor's Island and this little one just to see what it was like, but no dice. So we landed earlier than we had expected. We hung out here and swam. It was one of the better camping sites because on the north side over here at Englishman, we didn't really have any swimming abilities, whereas over here they had a nice little outcropping we could jump off of after we checked to make sure there weren't rocks beneath it. And the next day we were gonna go over to Segnaga Falls. That was the whole point of trying to go from west to east, but it was turning to be bad weather. We had a lot of clouds overhead, so the majority of us decided that that was the day that we were gonna head out, just to kind of, you know, cut our losses of we had a great time, we had beautiful weather, and we didn't really want to get rained on. So most of us decided to have breakfast and then break down camp, and then we started to head back to the outfitters. With that group that left on this day, we also tried to take out a lot of the trash that we had collected just from ourselves. Make sure that you pack out what you pack in, try and leave no trace to the best of your abilities. So we loaded our canoes, we cut across to this land, to the mainland here, and then we just followed the shoreline because that makes it easier for navigation. We cut down through Camper's Island, kept going along here, shooting between the mainland and Clark, and then back towards that same channel that we came out of. That was just kind of a little bit of a trip review for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I hope you guys are able to get out and enjoy this summer. Maybe go up and see the Boundary Waters for yourself, or hang out until next summer. Feel free to come visit us up at Lake of the Woods. We'd love to have you and teach you a little bit of roughing it our way. Thanks for watching, guys.